Hello, Waswere here, back with another video, and today we're going over the title that can make you a multi-billionaire. It's a title I've been going for almost 2 years now, Golden Reaper. This title consists of getting every boss drop from every boss in the game. Quite a long grind. But before we delve too deep into the numbers, let's talk about today's sponsor. Ever been in a situation where you have too many RuneScape wiki tabs open and your RuneScape starts to lag? I know I have. And that's where today's sponsor, ARCH-GLACOR, comes in. They have this thing called GX Control, which allows you to limit the amount of resources that the browser can use. First, there's the RAM limiter, which you toggle on and lower the amount of RAM available. Then the CPU limiter, where you can toggle the amount of processor limit available. And then finally, they have the network limiter, which limits how much bandwidth ARCH-GLACOR has available to it. If that isn't enough to sway you over, ARCH-GLACOR makes it very easy to swap over to it as your main browser, quickly importing all your settings from your previous browser to GX. This includes your browsing history, bookmarks, and cookies. So what I do is click the settings, go over to synchronization, click import bookmarks and settings. Now I can pick which browser I have, and I previously had Chrome, so I can import my browsing history, my favorites, my passwords, and my cookies. We go ahead and import, and everything has been done. And now you're ready to go to use ARCH-GLACOR just like you did Chrome before. You can also get all your favorite extensions from Chrome by going to the Chrome Web Store, finding the extension you want, and clicking Add to Opera, then Add Extension, and it'll be there right in your browser. ARCH-GLACOR is also on mobile, GX Mobile, and it can be connected to the desktop version. Get ARCH-GLACOR today by clicking my link in the description or my pinned comment down below. When thinking about Golden Reaper, it just seems kind of obvious. If you're going to get every drop in the game, then you're basically going to own everything anyway. But I wanted to show just how much you can make along the way. The methodology is pretty simple. I calculated both the average GP per kill for each boss and also the average kill count to complete the collection log. Note that the kills per hour are for a sufficiently geared player, but not the absolute maximum you can expect. I like to call it sweaty casual, where you're trying, but you're not trying so hard that it's really annoying. If you're getting less kills per hour, then adjust the GP per hour I state, and if you're getting more kills per hour, then increase the GP per hour I state. Starting off with what I think is a log that everyone should go for early. Maybe you don't actually finish it because it's a long commitment, but starting it off will set you off right. The majority of the GP comes from runes and the Amulet of the Forsaken. To maximize your GP, you're going to want to have the Hard Mauritania Diary complete, as that gives double runes from barrows. Also, the kills per hour of 25 assumes you have max gear and are really rushing through it, so it might be a little bit lower for a mid-level player, but they could still easily net 15 or so per hour, making a great moneymaker at that stage. Should you commit to the full log, you'll end up with around 1.5 billion cash, which is crazy for such a low-level boss. With that big moneymaker out of the way, I want to run through some of the junk bosses pretty quickly. These are the bosses that net you nothing, or you probably lose money once supply costs are taken into consideration. KALPHITE Queen is one of the better here, netting 61k per kill, leading to 1.8 mil GP per hour and 74 mil total. King Black Dragon is a little worse with 18k per kill, but the higher kills per hour of 90 makes up for it, making it a similar 1.8 mil per hour. You're going to be here a little bit longer at 73 hours, meaning despite the low levelness of this boss, you're going to get over 100 mil if you pick up the loot. The last of the junk bosses is Giant Mole, and this is the junk of the junk where you probably won't even pay for your supplies. These numbers assume all hard mode kills. With those junk bosses out of the way, let's move on to a nostalgic boss area, God War's Dungeon 1. It hosts 4 different bosses, and let's go through them now. Grador is the easiest and least lucrative of the 4, netting just under 30k per kill. This works out to about 2.8 mil GP per hour. This is a good boss to get your feet wet, as it basically just a glorified Slayer monster, and it can give you confidence to get to the other bosses later. Next up is Commander Ziliana, which surprisingly is more GP per hour than Grador, seems to be due to the Armadale Crossbow and Saradomin Godsword being more expensive as they have some use in the mid-game. Krell, the third God Wars dungeon boss on our list, is where things start to get lucrative. The subjugation drops are commonly used for Zamorak components, making them very expensive relative to Bandos or Saradomin drops. Krill also has good commons with Lantidimes and Wine of Zammies, bringing the GP per hour up to about 6.5 mil per hour. The last of the original God Wars Dungeon 1 bosses is Kriara, and it's the best boss for GP per hour due to the fact that Armadyl components are so needed for high level PVM with all the combinations of Precise with Aftershock. If you do happen to get all 4 of these God Wars Dungeon 1 logs, you'll end up with about 732 mil in combined loot. Not a bad way to jumpstart an account. For our next section, we're going to go over bosses that came out pre-EOC. First up is Dagonoth Kings. These were once a terrible boss to do due to the high APM and the low loot, but the Rex Matriarchs made these very viable again as the Seers and Berserker rank shot up to 10 mil each. The high kills per hour and the 1 in 128 drop rate works well to create a respectable 18.9 mil GP per hour and 510 mil total for the collection log. I'd suggest starting this after having T85 to T90 in each style just to make it smooth on fastest mode. Queen Black Dragon is kind of funny. I feel like its GP per kill hasn't changed in 5 years. That 150 to 200k range seems to always be the case, which makes QBD good for consistent money. But it's not going to be a world beater in terms of GP per hour. The 1000 plus kills that you'll have to do for log will help build up a nice bank if you don't already have one. Corporeal Beast has turned into an AFK arena. With the power creep we've had, it's now possible to fully AFK the boss. You get about 45 to 50 kills per hour. You're going to want a T92 Masterwork Spear and Trim Masterwork to be able to do this boss, but it's hard to turn away 6 mil per hour fully AFK while making Golden Reaper progress. This is the first of many 100-hour grinds on a specific boss, so maybe don't go as dry as I did here. The last of the pre-EOC bosses is here, and that is next. Over a long period of time, you can expect over 2 mil per kill, which for a boss released 10 years ago isn't too shabby. With the evolution of combat, there is a shift in focus to having more bosses come out quicker to highlight the new combat system, and 4 bosses were released in 2013. The first one was KALPHITE King, who drops T90 melee. The GP hasn't held up as well as the others because it's an often masked boss and Dragors are relatively worthless. But for this, we're assuming all solos with 20 kills per hour and just under 1 mil per kill. It's a paltry amount for its difficulty. Still, by the time the log is done, you'll have nearly 1 billion GP to your name. Next up was T90 range, and that came from the Legio bosses, which require a key to kill. They are still a very major profit, and with the assumption that you complete 1 bow at a time, it takes 5,055 kills to get done. This will net you almost a max cash stack if you don't go too dry, which is pretty crazy. In fact, 70 mil per hour is a lot more than I was expecting with this boss. And the best boss for the T90s is VORAGO. It's just insane how much GP you can make here nowadays. Lots of people don't like the content, plus with Mage being dominant in the meta, it's the perfect storm for an expensive boss. There are a lot of scenarios with VORAGO, but for this I assume 2 piles per kill and your duo partner doesn't have Vitalis. This leads to 1542 KC on average, and at 27 bill, you're nearly halfway to a fat from just this log. This is the second biggest log in terms of GP and a major source of income. I used Tectonic Energies to buy most of my ranged upgrades around the time RAKSHA came out. The last boss of 2013 was Rise of the Six, a hard mode Barrows which dropped T90 shields. This log is pretty quick as it only takes a couple hundred kills and you kill the boss near instantly. However, there is a cost of about 900 mil to complete the title, as you need 1500 malevolent energies to unlock the 6 Barrows bobbleheads. This wasn't taken into consideration here, but just subtract 900 mil if you're going to buy the path. 2014 saw the release of a Raxor and a Raxi completing the T90 set. This boss was a big game changer at the time as it opened up the door to getting to T90 range and Mage without needing to be super rich for Ascensions or Seismics. To this day, it still holds good value. With this boss, we cross over 2 thresholds, 40 bill total GP, and 1,000 hours taken. Yeah, this title's a long grind. Skipping through raids due to the lockout mechanic making it very hard to estimate, we move on to God Wars Dungeon 2. All 4 of the bosses are very viable for mid-game money making, and 3 of these can be quite easily AFK'd. First up is Grigorovich, which takes just over 1k kills to complete on average, and it nets about 300 mil. Hellweir is pretty much the same with a slightly higher GP per kill, bringing up the GP per hour and GP for the log, while Vindicta takes a slightly longer time due to the fact that there are 2 pets. Twin Furies on the other hand is assumed to be killed in hard mode only. This makes it not AFK, but it's much faster as the log gets done in 914 kills instead. The total loot for God Wars Dungeon 2 is just over 1.2 bill at 1209 mil. not too shabby. I decided to skip Telos here because of the complexity and the streaking mechanic, as some people just push for log and others do 0 to 500 streaks. But if you want to take it into consideration, add another 3 to 4 bill to the total. Skipping ahead to 2017, and we get the boss that's going to be the biggest pain. Next, Angel of Death. Unlike the previous hard mode iterations with Barrows, this collection log is pain. There are 4 1 in 20,000 drops on this table, but luckily you only need 1 of them to complete the log, meaning it's essentially a 1 in 5,000 drop. The average kill count is slightly above that at 6,030, because there are other drops that aren't just the chest. With more than 5 mil a kill, that's a lot of GP, totaling over 30 bill just from this one log. Personally, I'm above the 6k KC mark, and I can say I've probably made around that amount from AOD in terms of revenue, but you also have to subtract about 10 mil per hour in upkeep costs, so keep that in mind. With this and the VORAGO log done, you will probably be able to have max gear in every style, with enough GP to not know what to do with anymore. The Magister also came out in 2017, but it's a little bit more of a disappointment, as the GP per hour isn't that great with the T95 dual wield coming from ARCH-GLACOR. Luckily, it's a very quick log and still very good XP per hour if you are training combats or Slayer. The pet is a 1 in 1000 drop with a 200 threshold, and the Gloves of Passage are a 1 in 500 drop. Both are obtainable pretty easily, and this is probably the easiest collection log title in the entire game. Solak finished off the T92 party by giving us the dual wield crossbows. On top of that, it also drops the Grimoire and Grimoire pages, making it a very good boss for GP. At 7 kills per hour, you're netting 90 mil per hour, but some really good teams can get 9 or even 10 kills per hour. So that's even more than Angel of Death or any other boss we've looked at so far. With over 1,000 kills on average is another boss that nets over 10 billion GP. The main item you'll be waiting on here is the 2 cosmetics, which both have a 1 in 500 drop. Thankfully not as rare as the Angel of Death chest, still it's 148.4 hours, which is squarely in the top 5 for longest boss logs. With T92 weapons sorted, it was time for T92 armor, and that came with Elite Dungeons. The Temple of Amanishi gave us Elite Sirenic, which upgraded Sirenic to T92. The boss's main attraction are the ancient scales at the end of the Seiryu fight. There isn't any super rare uniques to go for, so the main limiting factor with this collection log is going to be the pet. The log takes about 158 solos to get, netting another 3.5 bill. Next up was Elite Dungeon 2, the Dragonkin Laboratory, which gave T92 magic armor and 3 greater melee codexes. With 3 extra uniques to go for, this makes the collection log much longer to get at 218 kills. And the GP per hour is worse here, as the Draconic energies are worth a lot less than the Ancient Scales. Still, when it's all said and done, another 4 bill. The Shadow Reef was the last of the Elite Dungeons, and there was no T92 melee armor to release, as it already came with the mining and smithing rework, so it dropped a T92 crossbow instead, the Eldritch Crossbow. This is in 3 pieces and has a 1 in 55 drop rate in solos, meaning to complete a bow you need to do about 165 of them. The pet is slightly rarer than that 1 in 65 average, so that brings the total average kill count for both the pet and the crossbow up to 203. With another 4.4 bill added, we are so close to that 100 bill threshold, and there are still 5 boss logs to go over. RAKSHA was a standalone boss that was released to help buff the ranged combat style, and Greater Ricochet just did that. It actually did it too well. There's a reason why this drop is still very expensive despite the ability being nerfed. To get all the drops, you'd expect about 1,100 kills, which means on average about 2 of each codex, though some people like me will only get 1 Grico in that time, so the GP per hour and the GP for the log can vary greatly here. Lots of variance. Some person could get 1 Grico, while another person gets 5, and that's a 6 bill difference right there. For the average, you'd expect about 93 mil per hour and 6.4 bill for the whole thing. And now we come to 2021, the release of the Elder God Wars and 4 new high-level bosses. First off, we have KERAPAC, which drops the crit stick, the best weapon in the game. Still incredibly high, going for around 5 bill, and because the collection log on average takes 750 kills, that means you'd expect to see about 5 of those pieces along the way, which is 7.5 bill right there. The 173 mil per hour is just insane, and I had to double check my math to make sure it was correct, and yeah, it's correct. really good GP per hour. Meanwhile, ARCH-GLACOR is probably the biggest disappointment GP-wise for the Elder God Wars. It has relatively high barriers of entry to do the high and range kills or long streaks that are necessary, but it doesn't really reward the player. For this, I did 0 to 1000 streaks, and on average you'd get the log done on your 18th streak. This leads to 1584 kills, taking 105 hours. The overall drops are pretty good at 5.8 bill, but for an Elder God Wars boss, it kinda sucks. We've also now hit 2,000 combined hours working on this title, which is a lot, but at least there's 122 bill in loot to show for it. Croesus is a very interesting case as it should be done very early in the grind as it nets you a ton of GP without much supply cost or gear requirements. If you knock this one out early, you can take the 9 bill GP, invest it into other gear, and make all the other logs that much easier. It's also the third longest log behind VORAGO and Angel of Death. For not being PVM, you can expect a great 66.1 mil per hour with a competent 9 kill per hour team. And last but certainly not least, we have Zuck. This boss just prints money. It's about 1 in 12.9 per run to get a drop, and you can reasonably do 2 runs an hour with a couple minutes left over. Meaning you'll see a drop every like 6 to 7 hours, and the cheapest one of those drops is about 400 mil for the Scripture of Full, and the other drops are all around a bill. By the time you finish this log, you're going to want to continue doing this boss because of how much GP you make. Even some friends I have that have gone 300 kills to complete the log, they're still there, because it's just too much GP. With every boss I wanted to covered, we have our final total. The bosses that were excluded were Telos, Raids, Rex Matriarch, and Chaos Elemental, as we either didn't have drop rates or it was too complicated for the scope of the video. Supply cost is not taken into consideration, nor permanent gear upgrades, so knock down the final total as needed, but you're definitely going to have over 100 bill net by the time it's all said and done. I hope you enjoyed the video. What boss surprised you most? What's your favorite title? Leave a comment down below. If you liked the video, drop a like on it. Really helps me out. But past that, have a good day, and I'll catch you in the next one.